Nexus, and it is designed to provide a safe, fuel-efficient alternative for commuters of the future. A single-passenger car, Nexus is designed to meet the existing Canadian safety standards for passenger cars. It will go 200 miles on a single gallon of gas, and despite its ultralight construction, it will protect the driver in a collision at 30 miles an hour. For only one person in the tiny three-wheeled Nexus, an aerodynamic fiberglass shell encloses the driver and the single rear wheel, and the front wheels sit away from the body in streamlined fairings. The car's modified all-terrain vehicle engine is mounted behind the driver's seat, giving it enough power to keep up with regular highway traffic. To protect the driver, there's a wraparound bumper and a solid foam nose section designed to absorb the impact in an accident.
Saskatchewan, and as usual, it's time to unveil the newest innovations in fuel-efficient supermileage cars. Every year at this time, engineering students at the University of Saskatchewan put the finishing touches on their latest supermileage creation, readying it for amateur fuel competitions in Oakville, Ontario and Kalamazoo, Michigan. The Shell Canada Fuelathon in Oakville is the first challenge for the university's new entry. It will be trying to beat the world amateur fuel economy record of 2,650 miles per gallon, a record that was set by the University of Saskatchewan team at last year's competitions. Both events are international this year, attracting teams from universities and technical schools across North America. The U of S team has taken first place in the student class at the Shell Fuelathon 3 times since it began designing and building cars 6 years ago, and has even beat the professional teams the last 2 years running. In Michigan, at the Society of Automotive Engineers annual contest, the University of Saskatchewan has always finished in first place.
We usually drive on an asphalt track, and it's usually about 2 miles around, and we take 5 laps of the track, so we're usually only traveling about 10 miles throughout the competition. A lot of people think that we actually drive 2,000 miles, to get our 2,000 miles per gallon or whatever, but we don't do that. That would take days.
The car must maintain an average speed of 15 miles per hour as it glides around the oval track. Because the engine is most efficient when the car is accelerating, it is only run in short 5-second bursts. The driver must decide when to start the engine and when to coast to maintain the required average speed.
Basically what you do is you get in and you go around about a 2-mile track, and you're usually traveling about 15 or 20 miles an hour throughout that. So it's not as if you're in any danger of crashing and burning. We use a momentum driving technique. And basically what that is you start the engine up, you accelerate up to about 25 miles an hour, and then you coast. Usually we can coast about a mile and a half with our cars, just from 20 miles an hour. Then you start the engine up and off you go again. So you're continually starting up the engine and coasting.
It's the car's special design that allows it to coast for more than a mile without power. The student designers concentrate on reducing the resistance, both through the wind and along the track, to get their cars to go further on less fuel.
Basically, there's 2 things, the aerodynamics and the rolling resistance. The aerodynamics, we use this wind tunnel here that you see to refine the shape of the car so that it's very slippery in the wind. It moves through the wind very easily. The second thing is the rolling resistance, and we use an Olympic track tire that you'd use on a board track for cyclists. Pumped up to a very high pressure to allow the car to roll very easily over the ground. All 3 of the things, engine efficiency, rolling resistance, and aerodynamics. And if you forget one of those, you'll never get anywhere.
But the students never forget. Every year, they must come up with a new design for the competition, and every year they find a way to improve their performance. Many of those improvements are a result of long hours of testing, using scale models and the university's massive wind tunnel. The wind tunnel is one of the largest such facilities in Canada and helps the students perfect the aerodynamics of their cars.
what happens is air moves by here at about 150 miles an hour through this section right here, and we take a model, something like this, a model of the car that we're thinking of building, and we mount it in the airstream and measure the forces on the model. And from those forces, we can tell whether the car is very slippery or is, shaped like a brick, shaped like, a car, like a big car.
The wind tunnel helps the students determine the drag coefficient of their cars, a measurement that defines how close the vehicles come to aerodynamic perfection. But wind tunnel testing involves building countless scale models, often only to discover another design idea that doesn't work. Best shape for their car, the engineering students must decide how to construct it. This year, they abandoned the usual plastic and aluminum tubing and chose fiberglass to fashion their new car. Everything fits inside the fiberglass shell, even the wheels.
Basically, the big thing we've done this year is put the wheels on the inside of the car. If you notice, this vehicle here has no wheels showing. The wheels are actually inside right there. And that's a departure from what we've done before. And the other big thing that we've done is we've made a fiberglass monocoque car, is what it's called. It's made out of fiberglass, and the skin of the car, the shell, is actually the stressed member. It actually holds the car together. And it makes it lighter. And
Shell eliminates the need for an internal frame, although an aluminum truss was used to hold the rear wheel and support the engine. Having the wheels inside reduces the drag, an innovation made possible by switching to fiberglass construction. Modifying their cars every year and trying new, sometimes radical designs, the U of S students have consistently improved their fuel economy records. In some recent events, their closest competitors were more than 2,000 miles per gallon behind them after the final tally.
I think that we have fairly good facilities. We have this wind tunnel that you see here, and we do a lot of our testing in that. We also have a great faculty advisor. I think that makes a big difference, Barry Hertz. And I think we just got a lot of spirit.
Work together to perfect their cars, and with sophisticated testing equipment like the wind tunnel, they can predict how the vehicles will perform long before the competitions begin. The cars are usually given a test drive at a local raceway, but most of the precision tests are done in the lab. An inertia dynamometer, which was designed by fourth-year students, simulates the track environment and helps the students run engine efficiency tests on their cars. By the time the spring contests arrive, they've usually got most of the bugs worked out.
Look, out on the road. It's a bird. It's a plane. No, it's super mileage car. As light as a bird, built like an airplane, and drivable like a car, it can go farther on a liter of gas than most other cars in the world. You have to lie on your back and look through your feet to drive it, but it's not made for comfort. Super mileage cars are purely experimental vehicles, built by engineering students from all over North America. The cars come in many different shapes and sizes, as students compete against each other every year to see whose car can go the farthest on the least amount of gasoline. It takes a lot of thinking and inventing. In other words, it takes good science.
All right. Okay.
The current world champions are from the University of Saskatchewan. Their vehicle can go 2,422 kilometers on 1 liter of gasoline. Theoretically, it could cross Canada on 1 imperial gallon. A normal car can go about 15 to 20 kilometers on a liter. So how do super mileage cars go so far on so little? First, these cars are about as different from the family car as the space shuttle is to a paper airplane. Second, they spend most of their time driving with the engine turned off. If you think about it, when a car is slowing down, it doesn't need the engine. And it obviously doesn't need the engine when it's standing still. But all cars and trucks have their engines running all the time, making traffic jams very wasteful on fuel. The super mileage cars have small one-cylinder engines, the kind found on lawnmowers and go-karts. They don't use much gas to begin with. During the competition, the cars must start under their own power and make it around a circular track like this one at the Shell Research Center in Oakville, Ontario. At the beginning, the car accelerates up to a fairly high speed. Then the engine shuts down, and it coasts on its own momentum. This is the first step in getting good mileage. The engine is only used when it's needed. The driver has to watch the speed carefully as the car slows down to know exactly when to turn the engine back on and add just enough speed to make it around the track on time, but still use as little fuel as possible. Actually run for thousands of kilometers during the competition. Otherwise, it would take months to complete. The gas mileage is calculated by weighing the official bottle of gasoline. The bottle is precisely weighed by officials before and after the run to see how much fuel was used. The car that used the least amount of gas wins. As the University of Saskatchewan students prepare for the next competition, they look for ways to improve the car's mileage even further. To be world champions, you need a little something extra, and that something is in the shape of the car's body. The sides of the body are curved. When the wind blows around this curve, it creates lift in a forward direction, almost like a sail on a sailboat. It's called negative drag.
This is where we get our big advantages from the crosswind. Cars, if they build them nowadays like airfoils, just like our car, the mileage would be so much higher on all cars. It would look pretty funny, and it'd probably be a pretty long car, but you'd get a lot better mileage out of that.
That secret made them world champions, but now the secret's out and everyone will be trying.
Embarrassed to be driving this car. This is a large North American car with a huge V8 engine, and maybe on a good day it gets 15 to 17 miles per gallon. That's not very efficient, considering at the moment it's only carrying one person. A more efficient car is the newer models. This one's a 1987. I feel like a car salesman. This one gets about 30 miles to the gallon because it has a smaller motor, only 4 cylinders in here. A more efficient vehicle yet is a motorcycle. Now this one's got a little 1-cylinder engine in it, and it probably gets maybe 60 or 70 miles per gallon. However, on a day like today in Saskatchewan, when the temperature is about minus 33 degrees, this is not a very practical vehicle. I certainly wouldn't want to take it out myself. But wouldn't it be nice to combine the gas mileage of a vehicle like this with the protection and safety of a vehicle like that? Well, it has been done, and that vehicle is being built right here at the University of Saskatchewan.
Contestants will have to make 4 laps around the 1.735-mile track at a minimum speed of 15 miles per hour. Fuel consumption will be determined by taking a standard Nalgene laboratory bottle with a shutoff valve, filling it with fuel, weighing it, and installing it on the vehicle. After the run, the bottle will be removed and reweighed, the difference in weight being the amount of fuel consumed.
This weekend didn't need to fly, but they did need to get pretty good gas mileage. In fact, the whole point of the contest at the CHP Academy was to see who could travel 7 miles around the track using the least amount of gasoline. Teams from 9 colleges in the western U.S. and Canada were there. This team from the University of Saskatchewan set a world record 2 years ago and won the competition today with a new world record, 2,569 miles to the gallon. The contest is aimed at engineering students, co-sponsored by AAA and the Society of Automotive Engineers.
Some unique-looking contraptions.
So perhaps the lesson is don't look to the Japanese or the Germans for high mileage, look to the Canadians.
Definitely not the sort of car you'd want to venture out onto the Hollywood freeway in during rush hour traffic, especially if you get claustrophobia. They're made mostly of balsa wood, styrofoam, duct tape, mylar, wheelchair wheels, and a lawnmower engine for a motor. But if it's gasoline mileage you're interested in, these guys are definitely on to something. This vehicle, for example, designed by Canadian college students from the University of Saskatchewan, set a new track record today of 2,569 miles a gallon. That's equivalent to almost all the way across the United States on a single gallon of gasoline. Not too shabby. Actually, that's rather paltry compared to the world's amateur record in these things of almost double that. 4,742 miles a gallon, set right here on this same track 2 years ago. Although these motorized cocoons are capable of speeds up to 55 miles an hour, most of them average only 15 miles an hour, simply in order to get maximum gas mileage. But what practical value does all this have? Well, these University of Saskatchewan students have taken what they learned here and used it to build this fully qualified street vehicle, which can survive a head-on crash at 30 miles an hour and still get, are you ready for this? 185 miles a gallon. Bill Branch, Newswatch 13, Yolo County.
Today in the 3rd annual West Coast Mileage Competition and set a new U.S. record with the Canadian Challenge today at 2,569 miles per gallon.